It's Friday. Typically, I go live on Wednesday nights, but if you were here for my most recent live, let me try this. Oh, look at that, how fancy that is. If you were here for my most recent live this past Wednesday, I told you that I had a treat for you in store this Friday. As you can see, I have 5 guests joining me today from places all over the world. These ladies have been living abroad long term. And so I thought it would be interesting to have a conversation with them about what that has been like, how that has been going. But before we jump into that conversation, in case you are new here and you don't know what the hell is going on, let me introduce myself. My name is Adelia Borishade, although most people know me as Picky Girl Travels or Picky Girl Travels the World. I am the founder of the Picky Girls Travel Solo Facebook group, which is a safe space for Black women, solo travelers of any age and any level of experience. I am also the creator of the Financial Confidence Academy because I believe that any Black woman should have the opportunity to live the life that she wants. And one of the biggest obstacles to that is often finances. So that is a space in which I help answer questions, mentor, what have you, all kinds of stuff. So that's who I am. On this channel, we talk about travel because I love to travel. We talk about living abroad. We talk about money. So if any of those things are of interest to you, be sure to hit the subscribe button, turn on notifications so that you can find out when I go live, like I have done for the second time this week. That's hard to believe. So that's we got that business out of the way. So let's get started with why you 5 ladies are here in the first place. Last month, I celebrated 6 years living abroad. And that got me to thinking, like I don't feel like I'm like an expert or an OG or anything like that, but that got me to thinking about like, well, how different the experience is the longer you're living this lifestyle and you're doing it. And so I thought, why not get a group of ladies together and talk about that? A few months ago, we did a panel about like moving abroad at different ages, and we had guests from each of the different generations, and everybody seemed to like that. So I put out the invite to you ladies, and you were all so gracious to accept. It took some finagling to get everybody scheduled on the same day at the same time. And if y'all know me, you know math is not my friend. Time zones are my nemesis. So I have been so nervous, hoping that the numbers, the times I've been telling everybody is when everybody's going to show up. But we're all here. So that's all good. So we are going to get started. And I think it would be good if you would just tell us who you are, where you are right now, and the different places that you have lived in your time abroad. And Karen, since you're right next to me, you can go first.
I can certainly do that. Good morning, afternoon, evening, wherever you may happen to be joining us in the world. My name is Karen Ricks, and I'm the head chef of Our Kitchen Classroom. And my journey abroad actually started with my husband just over 15 years ago. We left the US for Japan, where we lived for 10 years. And then actually it's January 2017, we made an even bigger leap from Japan to Italy so I could go to cooking school. And our 6-year-old at the time accompanied us, and we have been nomadic ever since, moving through about a dozen different countries or so in about 6 or 7 different community languages on 4 continents, many places, multiple times. And in fact, we have just relocated once more. We just left Guanajuato, Mexico, and we are back in Lake Ohrid in North Macedonia. And I am so happy to be here. Thank you, Adelia, for the invitation.
You're most welcome. Roxanne?
Hello, 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 hello. Buenos dias. ¿Cómo estás? ¿Todo bien? I'm Roxanne. I started this expat journey in 2006 in Japan, actually, Karen. Kobe, Japan is where we lived. We were there 3.5 years. We are a expat family, so we moved with my husband's company. And so we have been blessed to live in Japan. After Japan, we did come back to the US because that's where his headquarters are located. And then we got an opportunity to be in Mexico, and we were in Mexico City for 6 years. And my oldest daughter actually graduated from high school in Mexico. So my kids, I have 2 children, 2 daughters, and a lot of their formative years have been outside of the US. My daughter now goes to college in the US, but needless to say, I have a daughter that's a senior now in high school, and we moved to Panama City, Panama last year. So I've been in Panama City, Panama now, this is starting year 2. And I have a daughter who is a senior, and it's been a wonderful life. I tell everybody that I wouldn't trade it for the world. I've learned a lot about people, culture, myself. It's solidified us as a family. And so Adelia is my dear friend. We met in Mexico City, and I'm shedding a few tears. I want to be there with her right now, but needless to say, I'm happy to be here, and I'm thankful to be on this panel with the rest of you lovely ladies.
Nicole Banister?
Awesome. What's up, everybody? My name is Nicole Banister, aka Nikki Banz. That's what people call me on the streets. I am a TV show host, an MC, and a presenter. I'm coming to you live from Cape Town, South Africa. I've been in South Africa for 9 years now. I first came here as a Peace Corps volunteer, and then I just fell in love with Cape Town, and I basically just never left. But this wasn't my first time living overseas. My dad worked in oil when we were growing up, so we bounced around quite a bit, mostly around the United States, but I did spend my first 2 years of high school in Singapore. So that was my first time being wholly immersed in a different culture, community, language that was radically different from my own. And that sort of set the stage for me living overseas in the way that I do now. And I'm also mixed race. My dad is Black American. My mom is from Iran. So I've always grown up with a really multicultural, multinational perspective, just growing up in a household where I had an immigrant mother who wasn't originally from the United States. So that's a little bit about me. Adelia, I'm so stoked to be here with you and all these incredible women who are here today. Let's get this thing cracking. I got my wine here at 7 p.m. at night in Cape Town. So I got my wine, a little sip, sip. Cheers to all of you. And like I said, so honored to be here. Thank you.
And I don't know an easy way for us to do this. We have 2 Nicoles, both of them, their last name starts with B. So
Right.
I noticed that. Oh, okay, so the second Nicole B, Nikki B. Hi everyone, my name is Nicole Brewer. I actually have been living abroad for 12 years. Time flies when you're having fun. I actually first moved abroad to teach English in South Korea. So I started out in Southeast Asia, like a few of the other ladies. And I was there for 3 years. Then after Korea, I ended up coming to Oman, where I'm currently based. I actually moved to Oman for a year. And then after that, I went to Germany for a graduate school program. So I was in Germany for 9 months. I was in Cape Town 3 months. Love Cape Town. Definitely feel the vibes, Nikki B, Nikki Banz. So definitely can relate to that. So I went to grad school for a year in Germany and did an internship in Cape Town, South Africa for a few months. And then after that, I came back to Oman. So I've been in Oman actually for a total of 9 years. 1 year, left for a year, went to school, came back, and I've been back here for 8 years now. And that's my life in a nutshell. My expat life, having a ball, living abroad, teaching English, traveling, studying, and yeah, that's me.
And last but not least, probably, I would say probably the person who has lived in the most countries. Again, math is not my strong suit, and I started to add it up, and I was like, nope, not gonna happen. Miss Carla.
Hi, everyone. Welcome. Good afternoon, good morning, good evening, good midnight, depending on where you are. So I'm Carla Fraser, and my nutshell started with being a TCK, and I actually don't always count that, but I do. I lived in Jamaica for almost 10 years, so we won't count those 10 years, but I moved abroad for my career. So I tell people I took my career abroad in 2007, where I moved to the UAE, and then I became a repat for 2 years in the US, and then moved abroad again in 2012 to, of all places, Afghanistan. And I've been living abroad consecutively for the past 10 years. And cycling through from Afghanistan to Dominica in the Caribbean to Singapore, and then took in a career sabbatical, I'm now in my second, where I stayed in Indonesia and Bali, Indonesia, and then Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia. Went back and lived in Bangladesh, from Bangladesh to Niger, West Africa. And I am currently in the lovely Dominican Republic on my second career sabbatical. So I am an educator, higher education in particular, administrator, and occasional faculty member.
Okay, so y'all can see that the ladies' experiences living abroad kind of run the gamut. We've got single ladies, we've got married ladies, we've got ladies with kids. So I really am so excited that y'all are here so that we can kind of get the I don't know why my phone's ringing. Nobody calls me. I don't accept phone calls. So that threw me off. But so that we could get kind of the whole experience. Now, I was going to ask how you first went abroad, but I think everybody answered that. Yeah, I think it did. So I'll go with my second question, which is what has kept you abroad? Because it is perfectly acceptable to want to try living outside of your passport country, to try it out, to do it for a few years. But all of you have lived outside of your passport country for more than a decade. Why are you still abroad? Anybody?
Because it's so much fun. I joke with people, but that this was the life that I never knew I was meant to live. But my husband and I initially made that leap to Japan, and that plan was going to be for 1 year. And we were going to go back to our normal life in the United States. And like I said, 10 years later, we were like, wait, we can go other places too? Okay, let's go here. Oh, wait, from here we can go there. From there we can go where? We can go everywhere. So why not?
Now, I'm going to interrupt right here. One of the things that Karen is neglecting to mention is that in her 10 years in Japan, she started a Montessori school and ran that. So yeah, doing big
Yes,
things
girl. Yes.
Nicole Banister, why are you still abroad?
I got to piggyback off of what Karen said. Like, it's so much fun. It's so dynamic. I think one of the things for me is that I don't want anything in life to be mundane, even the things that typically are mundane, like going to a grocery store, for example. I love to walk into a grocery store in a new country and I'm like, what food is this? What music is playing in here? Like, what are the languages written on each of the labels? Like, that type of stuff is so exhilarating to me. And you get that when you leave the United States, you know? And so just like a walk down the street can be transformative. In South Africa, you know, we have 11 official languages in South Africa. So you walk down the street and you hear Sepedi, you hear Xhosa, you hear Zulu, you know, it's just like, it's so dynamic. And so that for me is one of the reasons why I really, really like, you know, living overseas. And just for me, being able to say I have a diversity of friends, cultures, and experiences that surround me at all time is something that's so critical. Again, for me, being someone who grew up in a household where nothing was ever black and white, you know, I know for a fact that that's not the way that the world is. You know, there's this person with that idea, this person with that perspective, this person with this opinion, you know, and all are valid and interesting, and we can have dialogue even if we don't agree on everything. And so being overseas, being in South Africa for this time, and since I moved to the African continent, I've been able to travel to 21 different countries on the African continent alone. So it's like Equatorial Guinea, Mozambique, Botswana, Lesotho, Nigeria, Ghana, Cameroon, you know, being able to go to all these places, and especially as a mixed Black American, to reconnect with that diasporic African, you know, part of me and my existence, it's just been truly such a blessing. So a couple different reasons there, but they all keep me going while I'm overseas.
Carla?
For me, it's been my career. My purpose has been as an educator, and it really came from the notion that so many students want to come to the United States and be educated. They want to come and get their college degrees in the US because it's such a valuable piece of education and a valuable degree globally. And many cannot. And so it became part of my purpose to merge my love for travel and my career, higher education, in student affairs in particular, and go to other countries and be able to share my student affairs background and experience and helping folks build soft skills globally. And so that's what's kept me abroad. I'm on this mission to share nuggets in every country that I've been to, in the higher education space, whether I'm in the classroom teaching or whether I'm being a student affairs practitioner teaching leadership skills, or, you know, doing experiential learning or some of those other pieces, helping out with student clubs on campus. So that's what's kept me abroad. And then I think the second piece is my sabbatical now has kept me abroad, where I've started a company to help other folks do this.
I'll go. I think what's kept us abroad, like I said, we are a corporate family. Just the opportunities, you know, the opportunities that have been presented to my husband in his company that we felt would be a blessing to our family, not only culturally, but financially. Let's just call a spade a spade. And just being able to show other people what living this life looks like, especially with kids, because what I do find is a lot of people say, oh, I would love to do that, or my company has, you know, a track where we could do international assignment, but I'm scared because I have little kids, or I might not see anybody who look like me, or my family's so far away, or what if my kids don't like it, or what if, you know, the culture is so different. And for me, I tell them, but look at the game, you know, look at what you'd be exposing yourself to. Look how adaptable. My children are so adaptable. And if for no other reason why I feel as though this has been a blessing, is my kids can walk into any space and know they're going to be okay. I can walk into any space and know that I'm going to be okay. So for me, we stay abroad because we are okay. And I have such a rich life because of it. And so I tell my husband, if they say we want you to move to another country, you just say yes, because I'm on board.
Yes, absolutely. Piggyback off of what Roxanne and Karen said, you know, it's the lifestyle for me. Like, honestly, when I first went to South Korea, I was like Karen, I said, I want to go for 1 or 2 years. I literally left in the last recession that we had back in 2008 or 2009. You know, I was laid off from my job. Couldn't find a job in the States. And I was like, I'll go abroad, teach English for a year in Korea. Let's see how it goes. And I kept renewing my contract. And I was just like, okay. kind of bored with Korea, but I want to go somewhere else. I love to travel. Like I love being abroad, being outside of my home, learning from different cultures and having these different global experiences. Like Nicole was saying, like, being here in the Middle East, I've been to 8 African countries and all throughout, different parts of the world. I'm literally in the middle of the continent, right? So it's like, I'm able to travel and see the world. Like that's really what's kept me afloat and just like flourish. I love it so much. I didn't plan on being gone over a decade, but here we are. And that's me.
Okay, so I wanted to ask this question later, but y'all have kind of given me the perfect opportunity for it. All of you have given this long list of positive reasons and great things about the lifestyle. In having this YouTube channel, more than once, I have gotten comments about like, y'all don't ever talk about the downside. It can't be that great. Are you trying to hide things? Are you trying to mislead people? So that leads me to ask you, like, what is the downside of this lifestyle? Because you've all been living it long enough that the downside would be evident to you. It's a very different experience, I think, than if I'd asked that question to somebody who's been abroad 6 months or a year. Excuse me.
I'll hop right in on that one. There has been downsides. And I don't downplay them. I write about them in my blog. But for me, some of those have been major family events. So I literally, one of my closest cousins passed away. I was living in Singapore. She passed away in Jamaica. There's no way, when I looked at that flight, it was 42 hours, including 3 airports and 3 layovers. And if I had gone, I literally had been on the ground for 42 hours max before I needed to get back and get on the plane home. And so I missed it. I missed my entire family getting together for my cousin's funeral. And that was heartbreaking to me. And so you do have those kinds of things that you experience when you live abroad. You live abroad long term. You live at whatever distance that may be. And that is one that I talk to people about all the time, is you're going to miss family events, and they're going to be significant ones. I found a way to participate. So I wrote a poem and had my other cousin read that at the funeral proceedings. And then I reached out to my family members while they were there. But there are things. You do have health issues, and I'll let other folks talk, but there are things that you run into. It's daily life. And so whatever happens in daily life, you experience.
Anybody want to add to that?
I will jump in after that because, Carla, I experienced something similar, but from a slightly different perspective. I lost my father a few years ago. We were in the fortunate position of being able to drop what we were doing at the time to travel back to the United States. But we were in New Zealand when that happened. And so it meant, 40 some hours on planes and trains and automobiles to get from where we were for me to be at his bedside shortly before he passed. And while that was an incredible blessing, it was also a reminder of just how fragile our existence on this planet can be. And as painful as an experience as it was, it also continues to fuel our desire to live our lives now. It was unfortunately not the last time we ended up returning to the States for a death in the family. And again, a very painful experience, but the challenges of traveling and being fortunate enough to be able to do that far outweighed the challenges of trying to live somewhere where we just don't feel we jive in the same way. And it's more work in a different kind of way to maintain those familial and those friendships for people who don't live in the same city, not just, down the block or around the corner or whatever. those are challenges, but those are challenges that we are willing to work through because we love this life that we lead so much. And our family, not just our family by blood, but our family by choice, understand that, and they also make the effort.
Nicole Brewer, what were you going to say?
Sorry. Yeah, actually, you know, it can be a struggle, you know, being gone for over a decade. Like, people always look at the photos and the travels and the experiences, and it's like, oh, you're living a life, and I'm like, it's not easy. I mean, we lived through a whole pandemic, you know, on the other side of the globe. Like the summer of 2020, like that was the first summer in a decade that I was not able to leave the country. Like, if I had left Oman, I was not going to be able to get back in because they closed their borders. So I was just like, this is my livelihood, y'all. Like, I love y'all, I miss y'all, I want to see my family during this global pandemic, but I could not leave the country. You know, and so like people don't understand that was a struggle. You know, like I'm a globetrotter. This is what I do. I travel, and so like having to be like in lockdown in a foreign country, away from your family, seeing relatives pass away from COVID on your mother and your father's side. Like, I literally lived through that during the pandemic, and it was hard. It was a struggle, you know. But at the end of the day, like I had to make the decision. Like, if I had left to go to the States, I would have been back in the States. Like, I would have walked away from my livelihood here. So, you know, it's a choice every day to continue this lifestyle. You know, you're going to deal with culture shock. I live in the Middle East. I'm a single Black woman in the Middle East. You know, it's just like that was a struggle within itself. It's not for everybody. You know, I tell people I'm a blogger. I write about I talk about the good and the bad. You know, and definitely more positives than negatives. But you have to be strong to walk this life. You know, so I'm always like transparent with my followers about that because it's not easy. So. Yeah.
I can build on what Nicole just shared, sort of around like the choices you have to make every day. And this is a little bit specific to South Africa, but safety is definitely something that's top of mind for me at all times. You know, South Africa has a really complicated racial history and a huge income gap. You know, South Africa is one of the only countries in the world where the rich get richer every year and the poor get poorer. Like, it parallels Brazil in that kind of way. So because of that, safety is something that's like constantly on my mind here. There's a vigilance that I have to have here that I never have to have in the United States. You know, Cape Town is one of the murder capitals of the world. 4 women get raped in South Africa per hour, and that's just reported, right? So you have no idea what's happening, you know, unreported. So in that sense, that's something that I have to be super conscious of and super vigilant of at all times. So safety is something that's really at the top of my mind. I mean, obviously those are things that have not prevented me from, you know, leaving. You know, I've decided to stay. And I love it here and I do enjoy it here. And there's a creativity and a flexibility that people have to have in a situation like this because of these sort of like dire circumstances. And that's what I really love about Cape Town and about South Africa as a whole, right? People understand that the situation can be so challenging. And as a result of that, they pivot in really creative and unique ways, the ways that I have never heard of or seen before. And so I'm really grateful to be able to see how people move in this kind of environment. But again, it's a choice every single day. I know that I can, you know, drive my car around LA and not have to, and I'm worrying about something very different, right? I'm worried about a police officer stopping me when I'm in Los Angeles, which is a very real threat. Whereas here, I'm worried about my car breaking down and me being stuck on the side of the road, because then I can end up as a statistic in a very different way. So safety is something that's kind of top of my mind. And again, that's something specific that I found in South Africa. I haven't felt that in other places on the African continent or in some other countries I've been to. But safety is something that I have to be aware of and just know that like I am foreign in this place. And so, you know, if somebody stops to help me or whatever, like the reaction could be different than when I am stateside.
Sorry, y'all. This COVID cough just comes on me whenever it wants to, out of nowhere. I was not going to ask about this, but one of the reasons I wanted to have y'all all here was for people who are hoping to move abroad or considering it. And I know those people who would watch this on my channel, this would probably be a concern of theirs. You are going through this world as a Black woman. And there are some places where that is more difficult, like your passport country. And some places where that's less of an issue. I'm just curious, has that been an issue? Has that been a concern? Has it been a problem? Is it something that you are actively concerned about? I don't know. But I feel like I've got to ask the "you are a Black woman" question. So this is me doing that.
I'll chime in on this one since I didn't talk about the last one. But one thing that people said to me when they learned I was going to move to Panama was, it's going to be so much better than living in Mexico because you're going to blend in. You are going to blend in. And I was excited about that because I won't lie, in Mexico City, I lived there for 6 years and I had to be intentional about finding community, about finding Black women who looked like me, lived similar to me, blah, 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 blah. So it was, for me, a refreshing conversation that, girl, you're going to blend in. The miss for me was blending in here is a different type of blending in, because what people don't talk about is the socioeconomic blending in that I fail at because I am not a local. I do not live like a local. People who look like me where I live, they are your workers. They are your domestic workers. And so as a result, the people who don't look like me are, well, who are you? What are you doing here? And the people who look like me are like, who are you? And what are you doing here? So for me as a Black woman, it's something that I talk about and I'm very intentional about talking about because I am one who just wants to be. I want to embrace, I want to love, I want to learn. But when people differentiate me or act as though I don't belong in both sectors, that's hard. And I didn't experience that in Japan. I don't experience that in the US. I didn't experience it in Mexico, but to come here and people I was so excited. I wanted to blend in. I wanted to see me. Well, I don't really see me. And as a result, it's a daily struggle. I will leave my apartment and find myself on the street and be offered a servant's job. And for me, I was like, the audacity of anybody to assume that I'm anybody but somebody that's just walking outside. However, the audacity of me to not understand, why wouldn't they assume that you are that type of worker? Because look around. Nobody else looks like you that's not that. So it's been an interesting learning experience here for me in Panama as a Black woman.
And you're right. That's not a conversation I hear being had. Anybody
You probably won't because it's icky.
Yeah.
Because it's not a pretty conversation. So you probably won't, but I am very intentional about having it because I think once you normalize this type of conversation, other people then say, you know what? You're right. Or you know what? This did happen to me, but I didn't know how to articulate it because I didn't know the context. And so I talked to a lot of locals about what is life like here for them and what are changes that can be made, especially for somebody who is in my type of position, because I don't like the feeling at all.
Anybody else want to say something about being a Black woman and living this? Karen?
I will say I had actually a very standout experience during those first 10 years in Japan. I'm sure it was because we were in a very much smaller city than Roxanne was. But I found myself constantly in the spotlight, whether I wanted to be or not, because I was literally the first Black person that many Japanese people had seen in person. And I mean, I was the cause of rubbernecking, people practically walking into walls, just walking down the street. And, the beauty of that for me was that it helped me to embrace my Blackness, my natural hair, my curves, my just uniqueness, because I was never going to be mistaken for Japanese. I was not meant to blend in, obviously, so why not stand out? And that's exactly what I do. And now, being back here in the Balkans again, there are not a lot of Black people walking around. I do stand out. But as Carla mentioned before, I am an educator at heart. And so I embrace the opportunity to educate people whose only perception of Blackness might be what they see in Hollywood movies, or, some other streaming programs that they see online. It is so much fun for me, not just meeting and getting to know people, but helping to smash the stereotypes that they have of who a Black woman must be and what she must be doing when they see me out and about. It's a joy. It is a blessing. It is one of the most fun things that I love doing, being out and about in these international streets. I love it.
Nicole?
Okay, so sorry.
Well, you pulled yourself off of mute, so.
I just realized that I was getting ready to say something, but I didn't realize I had already unmuted myself. So my bad. But no, really, I mean, I could relate to that struggle all day, every day, Karen. When I was in South Korea, I'm a 5'10", voluptuous Black woman, and and it was like I literally would walk around and turn a corner, and like my Korean would run to me, whoa, they shocked. So I can definitely relate to that experience. And you build a thick skin having that experience. Oh, big size. I'm like, oh, the joys of Southeast Asia, the memories. But on the flip side, what I wanted to touch upon, being a Black woman, an expat in particular, American with blue passport. So that I always talk about is we have passport privilege. That's one of the experiences that it's so interesting when I go back to the States. I tell people about it. I'm like, actually, I feel like being a Black woman outside of the U.S., I have more privilege than a Black woman within the U.S. with my little blue passport. So that's something I really just wanted to touch upon. Like, it's crazy, just like, being over here, being an English teacher in the Middle East, like there's so much respect when they hear your accent. They're like, oh, you're American, USA, oh, Obama, like we miss Obama, like, they skip right over. All right, literally, I've had Omani's tell me that, like, over the Trump era, they was like, yeah, we miss Obama. I'm like, yes, we do. So, like they have that correlation. So, just like, they respect the fact that you are living. Oh, what do you like about Oman? I'm like, it's a beautiful country. And they're just like, okay, I see you, sister. Like they call me sister. Like sometimes from my taxi drivers, like, oh, hi, sister. So it's a comforting feeling. People think like, oh, you're living in the Middle East, you're by yourself. You must be dangerous. It must be uncomfortable. I'm like, it's the exact opposite. This is one of the safest countries in the world. Like I went from good to good, like from Korea to Oman. So I'm very blessed in that aspect. But I just wanted to mention like that whole idea of passport privilege. The luxuries that we have being Black women living outside of the States.
I'm glad you did, because it would be irresponsible for us to move in this space and not acknowledge the fact that although we are Black, when they hear the accent or they see the passport, it's like, oh, but you're a different kind of Black though, And I mean, it is a real thing. It is a real thing. Carla, were you going to say something?
I was going to chime in from a career perspective. In higher ed, whether I was in the US or now internationally, I'm often the only one in my space. And when I moved abroad in 2007 to the UAE, my boss literally was excited for me because she will repeat this, that she was excited because she thought I would blend in. The same thing that Roxanne talked about. And it was a different experience. She's like, everyone here looks like you. You'll blend in. It will be okay. And it really wasn't. I dealt with a lot of gender things more than I did more so racial things, being Black woman. But that was part of it. But moving across the world and working in the places I've worked, I'm typically the only higher ed, specifically student affairs person. And as a Black woman, I am literally re-educating, helping people unlearn what it is. I clearly have had to do a couple times in Singapore where it was, you have no children? No, I don't. And it's like I'm getting the look, because that's not what they're used to from streaming and what's on TV and what they see about Black women, American Black women. I literally had a taxi driver said to me, I worked for an institution. He goes, that institution doesn't hire people that look like you.
Wow. Wow.
Especially from abroad. And I was like, well, let me explain something to you. There's this new college within the institution, and I bring a skill that the headquarter institution didn't have. So that's why I'm here. He's like, okay. And so you do have those nuanced conversations. And let's not forget about this. How many of us on this, we've had people want to touch our skin, touch our hair. They doubt that we're American, even though we have the accent. These are all part of being a Black woman abroad and being Black abroad in general.
It is. I had my very first, but where are you really from? Conversation in Kuwait. And I was just flabbergasted because, I'm used to white folks doing that with, Asians and other folks. But I was like, seriously? And I think I even said to the guy, I was like, Barack Obama, Beyonce. If they can be Black and American, why can't I? But it is. And so the takeaway I'm hearing from every response y'all gave is, if you are somebody who is just, I don't know, you are inflexible, the slightest thing might turn you off, then maybe this is not a lifestyle that's going to work for you long term. But is it any harder than living the life that you had in the US? I'm hearing no. It's just different. Okay. All right. For those of you who have children, and so that would be Karen and Roxanne, but Carla and Nicole Banister can probably chime on this as well, because they were technically third culture kids themselves. I am curious, your children, Karen and Roxanne, are third culture kids. They are being raised in a culture that is not that of either of their parents. How, as you've spent this time abroad, how have they been able to navigate, life as, I don't know, as a Black person, as a mixed race person? Same thing, Carla and Nicole Banister, as being somebody who spent, some of the formative years of your life outside of the culture of either of your parents. Has that impacted, or can you identify how that changes how you move through the world?
I'll start this and just kind of get the ball rolling. So when we moved to Japan, my kids were 10 months and 2, almost 3. They don't remember it. We traveled all over Asia with them. But what it did was it made them adaptable. I talked about that before. When they were 10 and 12, we moved to Mexico, lived there for 6 years. So my oldest daughter graduated from high school in Mexico. She went to a top international school. Both of my children went to top international school. I'd be lying if I said they really saw themselves. We never really paid attention to that a lot because we are a Black family. We are the Black family. You're good. You're Black. What I noticed with my oldest daughter is the last 3 years, she had a young lady who was in her class for up until freshman year. And then after freshman year, that young lady left, and it was my daughter. She was the only Black anything in her grade. Then mid of her junior year, all of her senior year, COVID hit. We're in the house, we're looking at colleges, blah, blah, blah. And she got accepted to Spelman College. And I've told this story before, and she didn't want to go. She didn't want to be the odd kid. She didn't have a strong sense of identity. And I didn't realize, I talk a lot about living this life and how beautiful it is, but I also talk about the misses. And what we failed to do was to really make sure that my kids had a strong sense of who they are as Black females, young women, because she didn't know how to navigate that. I mean, she was like, I don't understand a lot of Black culture. I don't understand what these girls are saying, and da 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 da. Needless to say, she's at Spelman now. She's doing great, but it was a journey. And my youngest daughter, what I found is we have been more intentional with her about exposing her to culture, diversity, Blackness. You know, we've taken trips all around the world, but really talking about what does Blackness look like here, so that when she now goes, she's going to go to college in the US too, she has a stronger sense of what all that entails. And so my kids have been very adaptable. But they have also, my oldest daughter, I'll talk a lot about her. She has been kind of shy regarding owning her Blackness up until this point, because it's hard when you're young and you don't know how to identify, and everybody else doesn't look like you and you stand out. She wasn't one of those like confident, like, look at me, I'm this wonderful Black girl. So everything in high school that we said to do, she didn't do. You know, try out for the music team. No, I'll do it next year. Try out for to be the captain of the volleyball team. No, I'll do it next year. And when we would ask her now, she said, I just didn't want all eyes on me. All eyes are always on me because I'm the only. I didn't want more all eyes on me. So now that she's at Spelman, she's realizing, oh, you know, there's so many like awesomeness about being a Black girl. And now she's singing, she's in their glee club, and she's traveling the world because they're now traveling. And so she is, they call her Miss Worldwide because she has such a different conversation than the girl. So what she thought she couldn't add to the conversation because she's a weird Black girl, she realizes that, oh my God, I am like damn awesome. You know, I add a different conversation. So that's my little gist about raising kids. But I would tell anybody, like, you know, your kids will be fine. You just have to plug into those misses, and you have to be intentional about filling in those gaps, because if your kid does not see themselves, you can't all of a sudden expect for them to go to like the US and be knowing how to be this like phenomenal Black girl. And they're like, I spent all these years as the only. I cannot now just jump into this situation and be like, oh yeah, I know this and I know that, you know. And my daughter being in Atlanta, half of those songs that they would play at clubs, she was like, Mom, I really don't even know. I don't know. But that's my spiel.
Well, I can say, Roxanne, having been following your experience with your children for several years too, that parents like you telling exactly the sort of stories you're telling now are continuing to help parents like me with younger children who are coming up along the way. My husband is white, spent a significant amount of time in the South in the United States. Our son was born in Japan. And so he has had a lifetime of being the only and standing out and having all eyes on him. And the beauty of that, because my husband and I have been so conscious about raising him to know who he is and where he comes from, is that unlike my experience of spending many, many years along this journey unlearning all the negative things that I've been told about what my Blackness must entail, our son has grown up in the knowledge from birth that he is unique, that he is special, that he's the one and only. And that is a beautiful, brilliant, marvelous thing. And so it is exciting for me to watch him move in and out of all of the different spaces in which we have lived, confident in who he is and seeking connections in the many different intersections that he sees in the various communities in which we travel. If we move into Black spaces, he connects with people that way. If we're moving in white spaces, he connects with people that way. We're moving in multicultural spaces or travel spaces or family spaces, multilingual spaces. He sees a part of himself, some measure of connection everywhere we go. And I feel like that is a really beautiful and exciting thing. And I am excited to see who he chooses to become and how he will decide to embrace all of the different aspects of his multilingual, multicultural, world traveling childhood. It's really a privilege to watch this young individual grow into the independent adult that he has always known he is.
And I will just jump in here and point out, because I'm not sure if this is clear to those of you who are watching, Karen's family, they are full-time nomads. So they haven't just, after the stint in Japan, they haven't just lived in one place. And so, I mean, like, he's getting the experience of a lifetime. Like, it's incredible.
I want to build off of what Karen said. You know, in my experience, living in Singapore for my first 2 years of high school when I was, 13, 14, 15, and now being in South Africa, but traveling frequently, in the last 10 years that I've been based on the African continent. It's been such a blessing and such a privilege to be able to have had the experiences that I've had and to be able to identify in so many different ways, because at all times, I feel like there's always a card that I can play depending on the situation. Like let's not pretend I open my mouth, I have an American accent. I can pull the American card if I need to. When the South African police pulled me over on the side of the road, I'm like, oh my God, I just came. I love it here. This country is so beautiful. And they're like, ma'am, keep it moving. And I'm like, thank you, bye. Let me not, say anything about the fact that I actually speak a language here. I'm not gonna whip that out. I'm gonna play the American card so I can keep it moving, right? Or I can go into spaces where I'm in a super beautiful room full of diasporic people from Ghana, people from Mozambique, people from Tanzania, and we all Black, we're all Black. We're all have different versions and experiences of Blackness that we can identify on. Or I go into a group of women and I can pull the women card. Like, there's so many different ways that I can identify now because I've had this super dynamic international experience. And shout out to my parents who moved me to Singapore when I was younger, and shout out to the being able to live and work overseas now. But it's I feel like because I have all of these very different identities, all these different things that I identify with, it's actually been such a beautiful thing to be able to share that. And when I think about the Black experience, specifically me being Black American and being on the African continent, there is such a huge gap between what Black Americans understand about the African continent and what African people understand about the Black American experience. And for me, being in the entertainment industry, I host TV shows, I'm in commercials, I host all sorts of interview series with all sorts of well-known people all over the continent. To be able to break down those diasporic conversations, to be able to talk to someone from Kenya and then someone from Nigeria and then a Black American and then a Black Caribbean person, to be able to connect the dots across those experiences, but then still highlight the nuances and the differences based on your specific cultural context, has been such a pleasure. And it's one of the things I love about social media as well. Like, it's amazing that I can travel to Sudan and do a whole highlighted story on it on Instagram, and people are like, wow, I didn't know anything about Sudan. I didn't know Sudan had pyramids. I didn't know that Sudan had this amazing food that people ate, right? Like, people have no idea. So to be able to connect my Black American experience with the African experience has been such a specific and niche privileged position that I'm in, that it's been like, I'm so grateful truly that I've been able to be here doing what I do, because that to me just makes women of color and people of color around the world stronger, so that we can go forth and prosper together, break down the systems of oppression that are trying to keep us apart, and we can go forth together and actually, do what we need to do to advance all of us, no matter where in the world we are.
Every time Nicole opens her mouth, I'm just like, yes, girl. I don't know, Carla, if there was anything that you wanted to add about your experience as a third culture kid.
I would say mine's a little bit different. So I did not live in my passport country as a child. But I moved to my parents' country.
Okay.
So that's part of the nuance with me. So my parents are originally from Jamaica. And so I went to live in Jamaica as a child. So my formative years were there. So I learned that culture and country, and what's different for me was coming back to the United States. I grew up in a country in the diaspora. I grew up in a very positive, affirming Black country where everyone looked like me, from the lady housekeeper in my house to the prime minister and everyone in between. And then to move to the US roughly at age 10 and experience the negativity around being Black and being, it was jarring. And I didn't really realize how jarring that was until later in life. And the things I did as a child to compensate for that. And I think that's the piece that we also have to pay attention to our third culture kids, is what do they do to compensate for challenges? In my case, it was speaking Patois, Jamaican Patois. And the fact that I learned and wrote in British English, I can't tell you how many times my papers came back with red ink because I spelled harbor with a U and labor with a U, and, you know, all of those things. And I literally had to, you know, sit in my room and practice to speak differently. Now, as a well-grown adult as I am, you know, I tried to speak Patois, but it doesn't sound right, because I lost that when I was a child because of the lack of any word, the bullying, as we now define it, but the cruelty of kids when I was a kid. And so I think for third culture kids, we have to be able to pay attention to some of those nuances as they navigate the world.
Thank you, ladies. Because again, like Roxanne said, I know that there are, I mean, like when I moved abroad, I took my 15-year-old with me. There are a lot of women who think that maybe this is not for them because they want to have a family or because they have kids, and, you know, they got kids everywhere, y'all. There's nothing novel in that. Which kind of leads me to the question for the single ladies. Again, not necessarily a question I want to ask, but I know the people want to know. Okay. You have been living outside of your passport country for more than a decade. I'm trying to think of how I want to phrase this. You know, I don't want to just ask a question about dating, because I think the longer you live abroad, it goes beyond that and about your desire, if you have one, for a long-term partner. And is you living this life impacting that in a good way, a bad way? I don't know. Y'all tell me.
I guess I'll chime in. I'll chime in. Yeah, because everybody was just like stuck, just sitting there like, how do I even begin? Oh my goodness! Yeah, the irony, Nicole, man, you were talking about Sudan, and as you said, I was thinking to myself, oh, my Sudanese man, he's literally flying, like the guy I'm dating currently here in Oman. He's Sudani, and he's actually flying back from Sudan tonight to back to Oman. So you know, summer travels or whatever. So yeah, so I'm like, options are out there. You know, like people think like, oh, it's gonna be so difficult to date. It's difficult to date in the States. Like,
hello.
So, what's the problem? Like, you know, you know, one of my girlfriends when I used to live in South Korea, I remember one of my friends, she used to say, taste the rainbow. Like, there are options out there. and that stuck with me. I was like, yeah, taste the rainbow, I like that. But so you know, it's just like dating is a struggle globally, but there are opportunities to get out there and meet people. There's networking sites. Like actually, my current boyfriend, we actually met at an Internations. I don't know how many of you are familiar with that, like the in-person, like the networking event. So he's an engineer, I'm a teacher. Otherwise, we would have never met, in person. But you just got to put yourself out there, just like in the U.S. and anywhere else. It's just like dating apps are something else. That's a whole nother. I don't want to go into that, but I wrote a whole article about that experience. But so yeah, it's just like dating. It's no different than when I was dating in the U.S. I mean, like I've dated an Omani my first year in Oman, and I learned a lesson quick African Omani. Like, won't be doing that again because whole cultural differences. You have to take these things into consideration. So yeah, I was like a fellow expat who understands this plight, okay. And that's the goal for me. But yeah, I mean, honestly, dating it's no different than dating in the States. You just gotta put yourself out there. So.
Okay.
So, I was gonna say I've dated. I've actually gotten married while I was abroad and divorced. And
so you had the whole experience.
Exactly. It's funny because the irony is that I've not really talked about that experience much. In full disclosure, I've talked about dating, and I have dated during the time I've been abroad, and I dated across the continent. Actually, I've dated 2 Ethiopians. Love them to pieces. Great guys. And I ended up marrying a fellow Caribbean. Unfortunately, due to unfortunate circumstances, that marriage did not work, and we were subsequently divorced. I agree with Nicole. Put yourself out there. There is opportunity to date fellow expats. You could literally find another American if you wanted one. Or you can date the rainbow. You can choose to date other nationalities within cultural context, based on your belief, based on your faith, based on whatever is important to you. It's out there. You can find it. Yes, are there precautions you need to take? Just like how the same ones you take in the United States or Canada or Europe or wherever you are. But there are opportunities. And if you choose to be single, there's also loving single life opportunities as well. So I encourage you to do whichever one fits whoever you are at the moment.
Well said.
I'll chime in here too. As a single lady out here on these streets of Cape Town, dating for me is probably a strong word. I don't know if I've dated. I don't know how much I have dated since being here, but let me just be real. I've had so many incredible lovers since I have been here, and men who I have really spent like a lot of significant time with. And I have met some of the most incredible people, and people who I just wouldn't have necessarily been exposed to looking at the dating pool in the United States. And so like I think about some of the men that I have loved the most, right? There's a Ghanaian British investment banker who lives in London but was in Cape Town on vacation. There is a half Rwandan, half Congolese basketball player. There's a South African Netflix superstar. It's like I have just met such a diversity of people here with so many different types of backgrounds and experiences. I mean, I can't lie. I feel bad for any American man who tries to come at me. Like, I've been living on the African continent for a minute. Like, things are different here, yo. Like, things are different. Like, I don't know if I could go back. I'm just gonna say, but I have just had like such pleasant and lovely experiences. And again, just meeting people who have similar interests as I do, right? I MC a bunch of club nights. So I'm in the clubs all the time, emceeing, hosting. And so I meet really interesting people across entertainment, across music, across whatever. People have traveled the world like I have in their own industries, but they're Nigerian, they're Ghanaian, they're Congolese, they're from wherever. And so so it's been really easy for me to meet people, to be totally honest. It's been really easy for me to meet men who I want to get involved with in whatever kind of way. I think I personally haven't found the one for me because I don't know if y'all can tell I'm a lot of energy. So I think that's the main reason why I haven't found someone who's trying to settle down with me. I think they're like, okay, we can handle this in a bedroom context, maybe, but outside of that, it's a lot, But I have no doubt that that the man that's right for me is coming to me. And it's just been truly a pleasure to get to meet people who, like I said, I wouldn't have met otherwise, and to really been able to travel the African continent through their experiences, through their lived experiences.
Okay. So for those of you who were wondering about, if you are single at this point and considering your move abroad, what your options were, what was available, I think you've got your answer. Okay. So I have done my duty there. I am curious how living this life, living, and all that it entails, how has that changed you? Good or bad? But I am curious, because this life that you are leading is so unusual. It is so out of the ordinary. How has it changed you?
I'll go. It's made me more intentional about being still and paying attention to how we treat each other. I'm a documentary photographer, so that's what I do. I travel with my camera. I take pictures, I connect, I show what things really look like. And so as a documentary photographer, I have to pay attention. I have to be still. I have to see. And what I've been able to notice is, because in the US, I had a routine. I am a trained pediatric nurse, so that's what I did for a living before we started moving abroad. And I was just, you go to work, your kids go to their activities, you come home, you make dinner, blah, blah, blah. I was very robotic. You go to church on Sunday for an hour and you're done. And I found that here, I'm really still. I really pay attention. I talk to people, but I don't just talk to people to talk to people. I talk to people to understand. I talk to people to learn. I talk to people so that I can see me in them and the experience. And I know, had it not been for this life, I wouldn't have done that. And I think partly I've done that also because I have been the only. So as the only also, I have had to, we're not together?
No, I did that.
Okay. I was like, are we not together anymore? As the only, I've had to think about what I wanted other people to know about me, what I wanted to share. And so as a result, I just think I have just been more in tune with myself, my voice, my story, what the legacy I want to leave in this earth, on this world. And so, that's what I have to say about the question.
Okay. No, I just discovered that I had the ability to do that. Sorry.
I thought we all disappeared. I was like, oh, where did I go? I thought I did something.
Yeah. I have to agree with what Roxanne has just said. I think, especially after the experience we've had over the last couple of years, lockdowns, a lot more isolation and separation, I have been very focused on remaining present, experiencing, not just experiencing, but seeking out and fully embracing the joy that I have in my life right now at this moment. Part of that, obviously, is some of my training as a chef, wanting to get the freshest, most abundant seasonal ingredients, whatever is here locally, what I have at my fingertips. But I also know that, especially as mobile as we are, as a nomadic family, that what I have today might not be something that is available to me tomorrow or next week or next month. So really embracing with every one of my five senses, with every fiber of my being, the joy of being here and now and celebrating all of the glorious experiences that we have together as a family in each new place with all the new and exciting people that we have the opportunity to meet is really, as Roxanne said, it's a very intentional way of living. And I feel that that's one of those questions you mentioned, Adalia, people asking all the time, well, why are you hiding the bad stuff? It's not about hiding the bad. It's about embracing the good, because there is so much. And I just want to suck the marrow out of life right now.
There have been, two things for me. I think the first one is the intentionality that I put behind my relationships and maintaining those relationships. And the second thing has been really embracing the reality of my life and my career not happening in the United States. So to speak to the first point, I, since being overseas for so long, I have to be honest that I am far away from my family, like many of the other women on this live have mentioned. I am far away from my family. I am far away from my friends. So for the people who are in the United States or who are in other countries who I really, really care about, who I really love, I have to physically show up because most of the year I'm not physically there. And that is important. So 2 years ago, I started piloting, going to Los Angeles and staying with my parents for 2 months. One, it's winter in Cape Town. I'm trying to skip winter everywhere in the world. So I skip winter in South Africa and I go back to my parents, in LA for 2 months and spend time with them and with my brother. And that physical showing up and being there means a lot to me. It's critical for me to spend time and show up for people who I care about, whether that's my family, that's my friends. If one of my friends says, I'm getting married in Cyprus and I really need you to be there, then I get on a plane and I go to Cyprus because that's what I have to do because I am far. So there's an intentionality between maintaining relationships with people who I really, really care about, that I didn't have to think about when I was, sort of based in the U.S. full time. And so I have to think about that. And I have to think about exactly what some of the other folks said, like what happens if I have to fly somewhere really quickly. So there's an intentionality there. And then, like I said, the second thing, for me, I had so much in my head wrapped up around my career based in the United States, going to Georgetown, an elite U.S. institution, so competitive. All my friends are diplomats, foreign service officers, lawyers, like big mergers and acquisitions lawyers in New York, consultants, a lot of people who are doing really big sort of intense jobs, like the type of things that you would expect Georgetown graduates to do. I had to free myself and liberate myself from acknowledging that my career and my lifestyle is popping off somewhere else. And it's not the United States, and that's okay. And it took me a long time to get to that point. To be honest, I'm still kind of working on that. But it's okay that I have a thriving career in South Africa. It's okay that I have more followers from Uzbekistan than the United States. Those things are okay. And I fully had to sort of learn that, the US market will come around to what I'm trying to share and what I'm trying to put out there when the US market is ready for it. And the reality is that the United States market is not ready for the pluralism that I'm bringing right now. So once I really embraced that, it really helped me to sort of solidify myself. And this is my life. This is the lifestyle that I'm going to live and I'm going to thrive in. So between those two things, that's really how I've changed and how I reflect on these past 10 years living overseas full time.
And Carla?
Cool. I think what's, for me, the biggest change was owning living abroad, because I lived abroad as a child and grew up as a child. And to go back out was a big deal. It was intentional. And so the intentionality, as everyone else has talked about, is part of what I did. My degrees are in international affairs and studied all that stuff because I wanted to go back out and be in the world. And it took me a while. But now that I'm here, it's about embracing. Who am I meeting? What are the cultures am I getting to understand and know? Now, I'm not a linguist, and so the language part I struggle with. But the people, the culture, the warmth, again, family, as I've gotten older, as my mom in particular has gotten older, I try to go back and visit a bit more often, spend more time. So like Nicole said, it's being present for those folks, the intentionality behind, you know, the folks that I call every day that are back stateside and we catch up, or the folks I call in Singapore, the folks I catch up with in name another country. Oh my gosh, I can't do that right now. But anyways, the thing that's also changed me, and I say change me because I've learned about other educational systems and I've been able to work within them. And so I think that's the piece that is also, for me, a big difference about my life and lifestyle, is because of this educational piece and working within other educational systems outside of the United States and being able to impact that. And that has impacted me in that respect. So I think those are the two big pieces: family, friends, intentionality, and educational impact.
Okay, thank you for that. Okay, this is like my last official question. If you could change anything about this journey from where you were to where you are now as an expat, an immigrant, whatever the term is that you use, what would you change?
I would have started sooner. I had no idea that a life like this could exist, because before we made that leap 15 years ago, I had never heard about anybody doing this. I didn't know anybody who did anything like this. My husband and I moved to Japan, literally not knowing a soul, not speaking the language, nothing. And it's one of the reasons that I enjoy being a part of panels like this, helping to educate other people who have a dream of something different, because it's really hard to make that leap, to do something different if you don't know what it can look like, if you can't imagine anything different from the life you're already leading or from what you see around you. So I want people to see how we as Black women can thrive and how we are thriving everywhere in the world, doing all of these different careers, being our biggest, Blackest, boldest, most audacious selves, because it is an absolute joy. And seriously, the only thing I would change is I would have done this sooner, because I would have had a chance to visit more places, possibly meet more incredible people, have more amazing experiences.
I can't say I'm shocked by that answer. Not at all.
I'm just going to say ditto. I'm not even going to repeat it. Just ditto.
Okay. Excuse me. Roxanne?
No, I would have changed feeling compelled to explain why I didn't work. And the reason I say that is because I am an expat because of my husband's career. I am a professional person. However, I'm in a profession that I cannot really work as a nurse in the countries that I've lived in. And so as a result, I always felt compelled to say, well, you know, I'm a nurse, but I can't work here. I would have dropped the need to do that years ago, because what it did was it made me feel as though I was less than. It made me feel as though I'm not an equal because I don't have a career, or, you know, I had to say that because, you know, my friends are in the US and they have thriving careers, and here I am, they call it trailing spouse. I know people don't like that lingo, but I would have dropped that sooner and just realized that, hell, me and my husband are a damn team, you know, like he is doing the damn thing because of my ass. Excuse my language.
No,
but
that's
you know,
fine.
it's like we're a team. So I wish I would have done that sooner. And the moment I dropped that and I said, girl, enjoy what you are able to do and go live your life as full and as big as you want to, it was such a relief. I was just like, don't nobody need to know that, I had to give up this because, So I would have done that sooner.
Well, you'll notice this conversation did not start with us talking about what it is that any of you do, because I am trying to be purposeful and not like I no longer identify who I am with what I do. And so it would be disingenuous for me to then ask, hey, and so what do you do? So that was intentional on my part.
Adelia, I'll just say on that note, the United States is one of the only countries in the world where your career and your identity are synonymous. There are few places in the world besides the United States that do that. You can be whoever you want to be, have this fabulous life, but in the US, people are handing you a business card before they even ask for your name. And I'm like, bruh, like I am more than my job, and I am more than my career. And I think building off of what Roxanne said, I wish one of the things that I had changed sooner was thinking that I needed to be making the same money as my friends in the United States to be the same lifestyle that they were. And the reality is I am living my best damn life in South Africa, making nowhere near as much money as some of my good friends in the United States. And I feel like I'm actually living a wonderful life. I'm on a plane every single month. I have a beautiful apartment looking at one of the 7 natural wonders of the world, Table Mountain. I live the best life. I have amazing wine from wineries all over South Africa. Like, I live this incredible life, and I do it at a third of the cost of people in the United States. And that's okay. I actually don't have to be making as much money as my friends in the United States. And I can actually have the life that they are trying so hard to work toward. So I wish that I had sort of released myself from those financial constraints sooner, because the second I did, I then actually did start to make as much money as they did, and the exchange rate is working heavily in my favor. So that's one of the things I wish that I had changed sooner, just thinking about finances in a radically different way and realizing that I can live a wonderful life at a cost that actually suits my lifestyle in a place that's not the United States, and it's okay. And it's actually not just okay, it's fantastic.
Yeah, I don't know what the topic of the live was, but one of the things that I kept mentioning was, because I hear this a lot with people who are trying to prepare for a move abroad, especially if they're not being relocated by an employer. They're trying to get a handle on like, how much money do I need? And like, I don't know about getting a job in that country because they pay less. And it's really about how much money do you need to live the lifestyle that you want? That's really what it boils down to. KB wants to know if any of you plan to return living full-time in the US.
Yes. We are expats with a company, and that company is based in the US. And so we know that this company expat life is not going to last forever. We do have permanent residency in another country, so that's always an option. I won't lie, my husband is very much, we're American. I like living in America. This has been a wonderful life for us, but yeah, he has a stronger desire to go back than I do. And so what I know for sure is, even if we do move back to the US, which I know we will, we travel the world. So that is not something that we will ever stop doing. So yeah, my house can be in the US, and I can leave and I can go other places and embrace other cultures like we've been doing for this journey of our expat lives. So it's going to be a yes for us. Where? That is yet to be determined, but our kids will probably be in the US as well. So it's going to be a yeah for me.
I'm gonna take that silence as a nah. It's probably not gonna happen.
Yeah.
Go
I mean, I was just gonna say, look, I spend June, July of every year in Los Angeles because Los Angeles summer. So I'll spend June, July of every year in Los Angeles. And I'm telling you right now, if Netflix calls me and says, Nicole, we need you to be in the United States filming this movie for the next 9 months, you better believe I'm moving my ass back to the United States. But like Roxanne said, you know, no matter where I'm based, I will be traveling heavily and frequently. You know, I got an apartment in Cape Town. I have an apartment in Zanzibar. Like I can get out if I need to get out. A full-time move, I don't know, but I could spend big chunks in the US if and when I need to. Anybody out there from Netflix, call me.
I was going to say, for me, what I have essentially decided is no. However, there's a caveat. As my mother ages, I will move back to the United States to support my mom in her later years. And then at which point she's no longer with us, I'm moving back out permanently. and I know that, you know, that's kind of what I've set in my mindset. I do go back to the US at least once a year for a couple weeks in combination typically with work and visiting family, my mom and friends. That's I'm being a little bit more regular about that, more than once a year sometimes now. But I don't see myself long term. There needs to be something significant. And I use the word significant, and it doesn't have to be a man, but to get me back to the United States permanently.
You know, I mentioned earlier about the extra work that we put into maintaining relationships, both with our family by blood and our family by choice. You know, my family has recently just left North America again. We're back here in the Balkans. And as I told Adelia before we got started here, I was greeted at the door with, you know, arms flung and big bear hugs and a welcome home. So personally, I carry a blue passport. I was born and raised in the United States, but I am a world citizen. And I have family all around the globe who are happy to welcome me home in a number of different countries and continents around the world. Like Carla said, there are reasons that I might be drawn back to the United States, but I don't personally see myself living there permanently. But then again, you know, God only knows what's in store in the future. I couldn't have imagined this life that we're currently leading now. And I'm blessed to enjoy every minute of it, wherever his plans might take us in the future.
Okay. All right. I wanted to acknowledge this. We got a super sticker early. I don't know if Andre is still here, but thank you for that. And then somebody in the Facebook group left this comment about, you know, like how uplifting it has been to have this conversation and to hear y'all's perspectives. So I want to extend my thanks to you ladies again. Nicole in Oman had to go. That's why she's not here. But thank y'all so much. In the description of this video is a link so that you can connect with all of the ladies. Karen's Our Kitchen Classroom, Roxanne's Instagram, where you can see some of her fabulous photography, some of which I have hanging in my home. Carla, I can't remember what I put for you, Carla, if it was your Instagram or your website. It's one of them. And I linked to Nicole Banister's YouTube page, where you can see all of the incredible interviews that she does with superstars from all over the world. Thank you so much, ladies, for giving me some time and being patient with my multiple texts and emails to get this all scheduled. Thank you all so much.
Thank you for having me. You know, for you, it's
Thank
always a
you,
yes.
Adelia.
So you don't even have to be like, would you be available to this? It's a yes.
Oh, and
Amelia.
Oh, and that's what I want to mention. For those of you who are watching this that are interested in more about Karen's story, I interviewed her when I started the podcast back when I lived in China. I interviewed Roxanne as well. And in about 2 weeks, y'all will get to hear more from Miss Nicole Banister. So if you go to the Picky Girl Travels the World podcast playlist, you can find those there. So,
thank you so much, Adalia. This has been a blast.
I've enjoyed it. I hope everybody who watched this or who watches the replay has enjoyed it as much. This has been fabulous.